I got my pumpkin spice latte.
There it is. PSL season.
We both talked about this, and I feel like we both. I don't know if you actually agree with me or not. I think this is a little early for
Never
pumpkin
too
spice
early for
latte.
pumpkin spice latte.
I mean, September, right? The beginning of September.
And all the sun's beaming in. It does feel weird.
It's 80 degrees.
That's right.
So,
but maybe by the time you're viewing this, it'll be
that's
closer to fall. Maybe closer than you want it to be, but it's inevitable.
That's true. So welcome to Almost Fall. Welcome to your September 4Thought. I'm Nathan. This is Lauren. Thanks for taking the time, clicking the link. We wanted to spend some time just talking, elaborating a little bit more about what we spent some time writing about, which is basically risk and how to view risk. And we spent some time talking about a specific phenomenon in the market.
Right, that happens every September.
It doesn't happen every September, but
correct. It feels like you hear about it every September.
Right, which is, sometimes September can be a volatile month, and we documented a little bit of evidence of that in our newsletter. The reason that we speak about those things
because we really haven't had a lot of volatility recently.
Yeah, right. We haven't, and we speak about volatile periods in the market not to alarm anyone or to predict that it's going to happen or to influence your decisions around your portfolio or investment strategy based upon what you think is going to happen over a short period of time. That would be absolutely be
counterproductive to what the goal or mission is. But we want to make you aware that we understand these rules of thumb that aren't necessarily 100% applicable, whether that's sell in May and go away or the September effect, etc.
Right. And as you said earlier, and I rudely probably cut you off, which I tend to do. Sorry.
My job to cut you off.
Well, I guess we do a fair, and we're equally rude with each other sometimes. But when you said the fact that we hadn't had a lot of volatility, which almost 2 years, I mean, a year and a half plus, we hadn't had a 2% down day in the market, in the broad stock market, speaking about the S&P. So that's unusual.
Correct.
And it's more usual to have, say, a 10 to 14% sell-off every in a given year than it is to have that extreme low level of volatility. That is abnormal. And you get maybe lulled into a false sense of security that everything's just going to grow in a straight line.
Like a swoosh.
Right. And portfolios have been doing very, very well across all type of risk spectrums and different allocations for almost 2 years now. And so volatility does come. It is regular. It is normal to accept volatility as part of being an investor. We want to make sure that, we're communicating that to you.
Yeah. Without the risk in the portfolio, you don't get the returns.
Right. Yeah.
So I think that's a key point. And when you don't have it for a long period of time, because it's all relative. So I think, in years past, a 2% change in the marketplace would kind of be expected.
Right.
But, the recent one, I think, was a gut punch to some people that, hey, this can happen and it can happen quickly.
Right.
But on the opposite end of the spectrum, it may go down quickly, but it also can.
It can recover quickly. And so I think there's two ways to look at risk. There is really what I would consider, small risk, little risk, and then there's a big risk. Little risk are things that, affect a portfolio for a limited amount of time. A small risk might be, hey, the stock market's going to go down. That's a small risk because, yes, it always does. It has volatile moments. There are periods of time where your asset values are going to decline over a short period of time. And I say short because over a relatively short period of time, relative to any goal that you're investing for. If you're investing for a 10-year, 15, 20-year, that's where we're making big impacts to you, is over long periods of time. And yes, we can help you save for things that are 24 months down the road or 18 months down the road.
Yeah, but that's a different asset allocation than if you have a 25-year time frame than a 25-week time frame.
Right. So that would be considered that's a little risk. Volatile moments come and go. Number two, they don't last very long. They're weeks, months, and yes, there are longer periods of time where the market can decline. Those don't come around very often.
Sure. Bear market's much more rare. Maybe every 4 or 5 years.
Right.
Versus, like you said, a 10% drawdown,
which
should happen every year.
Yeah, it's very common. It happens all the time. So we see those things and we say, well, this is expected. This is normal. You shouldn't kind of try to plan around those things or try to navigate through those things. So they happen regularly. They're short-lived. And then what happens every time that we have a market correction, even or a longer bear market or a recession, in a relatively short period of time, the market recovers and sets new highs.
That's right. And that's another risk that I think we're going to talk about a little bit more is if you say, the market's down, whatever percentage in a short time frame, let me just sell out, and then I'm going to sit on the sidelines until it covers.
Yeah, or until I feel better.
That's right.
And when you feel better is when you've had a probably more than 100% recovery and you've missed all of that.
Correct.
And then you start this cycle that you can repeat, and you can repeat until it goes to zero, right?
And those are the kind of things that you can control.
Mm-hmm.
So the things you can control, diversify the portfolio. Mm-hmm. That's going to help with volatile markets. And it's easy to react emotionally to those things. And there unfortunately are people that are reacting emotionally to market downturns. We hope that we can help mitigate that risk by sending out these newsletters and communicating with you as much as possible.
Yeah. So again, those are small risks because they happen very often. They're usually short-lived, and the market recovers. The big risk, though, if you're focused too much on the short risks, you're going to miss the real risk. The larger risk is you don't implement and move forward with a long-term plan that's going to help you and your family be more prosperous, have more resources to live the life and accomplish the goals that you want to accomplish. We say around here, we plant trees. And what we mean by that is we fundamentally believe in a long-term investment that's going to grow and be sturdy, and it's going to weather storms, and it's going to provide shelter, and it's going to provide shade to you and your loved ones in the future, right?
Yeah, like my favorite book, The Giving Tree.
The Giving Tree, which I used to read to my kids a million times over when they were younger. So that's what we're in the business of doing, is growing trees. And so that takes time, but you have to nourish that. You don't want to chop a tree off.
You don't want to stun its growth.
That's you don't want to do anything that's going to harm that tree.
Yeah.
So the longer term risk, the real risk, is you not saving and investing
and growing the portfolio enough
to meet those long-term objectives. And if you focus too much on those short-term risks, you're going to miss the real big risk.
And it doesn't mean, what I hate, and I probably said it in the 20 plus years that I've done it, is someone calls us or we're talking to friends and the market's down and they say, well, what are you doing? You're probably getting a lot of calls from the clients. And sometimes we are, sometimes we're not. And what we want to say is, look, we put a lot of time and energy into developing the plan. We diversified the portfolio. Really, we're not getting a ton of calls with people panicking because we've kind of set that aside. But that doesn't mean we're not doing anything during these times of market volatility, because like any other moment of adversity in time, there's opportunities in adversity.
So what are we doing when you have a period of volatility? Let's say the market is down 15% from a peak to a trough in a certain year, in a certain period of time. What are the things that you can do?
I'd say that the thing that we do in those exact periods, and I'll talk more, because it's not just about when the market's down. There's also things we do when the market's up. Mm-hmm. So when the market's down, we do something called tax loss selling. Mm-hmm. I know that sounds like a really odd thing to say, is that we're going to sell some of your investments for a loss, when we specifically tell you you don't really lose any money until you sell. But that terminology, and Nathan, I think, uses a better term, where we're capturing tax credits. Mm-hmm. So inside the portfolio, you're going to have different asset classes. One you hear talked about a lot, right? The Magnificent Seven, large cap growth. So if you have an investment in that, and some of those investments, like recently, may have come down below your purchase price for them, we're going to sell those investments, and at the same exact time buy a similar but not exactly the same investment, so that you stay invested, the asset allocation stays the same, but that short-term loss that you have, you're going to be able to capture that and use it as a tax credit against any capital gains that year or even in the future. And then if you don't have any capital gains in the year in which you take them, you may be able to use a little bit of that
for income
to offset any income. So we're definitely doing that. The other thing that we're doing all the time, we're doing it every year on an annual basis, is we're rebalancing the portfolio. And same, I think I'm guilty of it. You hear it a lot. People say rebalance, like it's a term that everybody understands, but I want to dig in just a little bit. So rebalancing the portfolio, again, sounds a little bit contradictory, because you're going to have an asset class that's grown so much in the portfolio that now the portfolio is out of balance. Or technically, what I say is it's out of whack.
That's a technical term.
And nobody wants their portfolio to be whacked.
We don't want to be speaking too much jargon on these things.
So you have, let's use large cap growth. It's grown too much. And there's other asset classes, maybe like small cap companies, that haven't grown as much. So we're going to take a little bit of that cream off of the top, something that's outperformed, because eventually everything eventually goes to its mean. So the higher something grows, the more potential it's going to revert to the mean. And then the asset class that is undervalued has a larger growth potential. So we're selling high and we're buying low.
Right. And those aren't things necessarily that we would see people who are self-managing portfolios.
Very difficult to do on your own.
Right. So if we have a plan in place and we are systematically doing these things for you, we think that can enhance returns, tax loss credits, rebalancing portfolios, which is essentially what you're saying is buying the asset or selling the asset class, excuse me, that it's done extraordinarily well, and maybe buying and spreading that throughout the portfolio, not only to keep the integrity of the portfolio sound based upon the plan, but also to capture maybe some inefficiencies in the portfolio where there might be in the future, you can see some outperformance in a different asset class.
That's right. That's right. And then one thing that we want to talk about a little bit today, because we've seen it happen in periods of volatility, is maybe somebody's had a liquidity event or they have money on the sidelines and they're waiting for that exact right time to put the money to work in the market. We have to tell you that that exact right time, it's never going to happen.
It doesn't really exist.
So for us, we would say time in the market is better than timing the market. So if you have that money and you have a plan, get that money to work as soon as possible so that plan has a better chance of success. However, we understand that it's not all IQ, some of it's EQ. How do I feel about this? So if the decision making process is A, I'm going to wait for the exact perfect time to invest, or B, I'm going to put this money into the portfolio over a set period of time with a specific dollar amount, then I think we could compromise on that because that's better than not getting the money.
Right. So what Lauren's saying is if something about the volatility of the market or something is giving you pause in terms of implementing, and we know that that's the best thing to do. However, there can be a compromise, and that would be dollar cost averaging in, is what Lauren is describing, is setting a period of time to say, I have this cash that I really need to commit to my long-term goals, but I don't feel confident in putting all of it to work right now. Okay, let's put a plan together to implement that and get it to work over the next.
Yeah, whatever time frame is most appropriate. Yeah, but I definitely wouldn't want to see anybody extend that out over 6 months.
Great.
So in summary, obviously we want to talk about volatility, what we're doing for you in times of volatility, and as usual, how important it is to have a solid plan and stick to that plan to achieve your goals.
Right. Without having that, you have no roadmap. That's why we start with that when we're meeting with new clients, and then we update those things every time we meet with you on a regular basis.
So as always, I think we say this very, very often. If there's things that we missed today or you'd like us to cover in more detail, please provide us with the feedback that you want. What we're doing whenever we're putting together what we're going to talk about in the video is most of the time it's conversations that we're having with clients throughout the month. But unfortunately, we can't touch every client in the same month. So that's why we use these to try to garner any feedback. If there's questions that you have in your mind, if you've heard something that you want us to address that maybe we haven't, please feel free to contact us and let us know, and we can make these more specific and tailored to your wants and needs.
Definitely. We always say we want to deliver a signal, kind of cut through the noise. And what we mean by that is speak to you about what we feel are the pertinent items for you to know and understand.
So thanks again for all the trust and confidence you put in us. We look forward to talking to you again next month.
Thank you. Happy fall.